Most of you already know this bill has gotten attention from the auditor's office since I introduced it last week. I want to be clear that this is my bill and it's based upon concerns that began for me on September 12th of last year. This bill was in drafting and was being framed well before last week's budget hearing with the state auditor. It is not a reaction bill to a meeting or to anything that happened last week, which has been characterized in a number of posts and other things that are out there on social media. The bill includes items of concern that were shared with me by both the Office of the Secretary of State and the Office of the Attorney General. The bill does not decrease audits or investigations. It increases the number of required audits by the state auditor and clears up ambiguity in the statute that has led to confusion. The bill also clearly defines the role of the Attorney General in prosecuting a lawsuit for unpaid demands that require such action. My concerns that came up on September 12th came from a press conference that I just happened to see on TV with our state auditor. So he made a trip up to DeSoto County and held a press conference arresting one of the aldermen from Horn Lake. The alderman was arrested for accepting unemployment insurance during COVID. And so the circumstance of that is the alderman was not employed during COVID and filed for unemployment and failed to list the fact that he was an alderman on the application. However that happened, I didn't file the application. I don't know how that happens. Alderman pay for Horn Lake is around $10,000 a year. So during the course, as I understand the facts now, the alderman realized the mistake and paid the money back. At the press conference, the alderman was arrested. His face and mugshot were put on the television and he was sent to jail. The following day, an attorney from Oxford, Steve Faris, came down and held another press conference. And at that press conference, he revealed that the former alderman had paid the money back. He'd been bailed out and that there had been some errors in this rush to judgment and rush to press conference. So what I did was I called MDES and I asked, has this gentleman paid this sum of money back? It took them a little while. They got back to me and they said that he had. And so with that information, I sent a text to the auditor, and I have that text because I'm a very good record keeper. I keep everything. Those of you who know me, it's probably a flaw, but it's also an advantage at times. And I sent that to the auditor expressing my concerns over what had happened in this case. So as soon as the text went out, he immediately called me back. He said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I have these concerns. We've had somebody who it appears, has been arrested, has had their face put on television, not on the posts that we get on, our emails all the time, but on television. And it seems to have been, maybe a race to prosecution." So I expressed those concerns. He immediately asked me, he said, "How did you get that information?" And I said, "I called MDES." And he told me that I could not call MDES. And I told him I can call MDES. He then asked me who I had spoken to at MDES. And I told him I was not going to tell him who I spoke to at MDES. And he said that I have to tell him who I spoke to at MDES because this is a federal investigation and I'm interfering with it. And I told him again, I'm not going to interfere, and I just have concerns that this gentleman who, in what I consider to be, fair method, had been able to pay something back, made a mistake, and had his life changed. He told me that this alderman is a criminal and he needs to be in jail. And I hung up on him, and that's the last time I spoke to our state auditor. So when someone makes a representation that the bills and the concerns that I have about the authority and the prosecutorial reaches of the auditor, and they want to attribute that to the lieutenant governor or attribute it to anybody else, I'll tell you, attribute it to me. I held my comments until today because I don't do legislation on social media. I do legislation in this room. And I will tell you, when we are put in jeopardy on issues, as senators and other people who understand the process, we are given the opportunity to reply and do other things. When blue collar people who are serving as an alderman have that happen, they're never able to run for office again, and their life has changed. I would guess, and again, I'll say this, I called back to MDS to get some more information, and I was told by MDS that a call had been made to MDS and they could no longer talk to me about the case. So I have no further information about this since then. But it's our duty to look out for and to stand up for the people who don't have the knowledge and the ability to come here and make a difference. And so there are a couple of changes to the auditor statute that I'm suggesting. If anybody after this meeting has questions about them, I'm going to ask you, don't run up to the lieutenant governor and ask him. I'm going to ask you to come to me and talk to me face to face. And if you have questions about a bill I introduced, before getting on Facebook and land blasting people about it, I ask you to call me and come to my office and talk to me.